Pirates of the video podcast. I'm Bryan Cantrell. I am a writer, a screenwriter, a novelist, and a producer of movies. And I'm going to do I probably think it's a 12-part series on Pirates of the Golden Age. We're going to start with my personal favorite, which is Blackbeard. I'm in the process of finishing a novel that incorporates many of the pirate captains of the golden age of piracy. And what I want to do is give a little background on each particular character and talk about how their actual facts of history aren't really known. During that time, there's not a lot of records that would have been kept up with. So a lot of things are just arrest records and some firsthand meetings of these pirates. There's been several books, even a book back at that period of time, The History of Pirates, that documents things about our beloved Golden Age pirates. I've been a fan of pirates since I was a kid. I remember having one of those replica flintlock pistols. I believe I got it from Disney World. And since then, there's been countless times where I've just been just devouring books about pirates and, of course, the movies about pirates. And so when I decided that I was going to write a novel after a period of trying to outline different things, I decided a pirate book is what I wanted to do. I'm calling this series Pirates of the, because I don't want to say the Caribbean. I don't want to say what my book is about until it's done, but it will incorporate pirates in a scenario where they're kind of a fish out of water situation. So to begin this, one of the main characters is our old friend Edward Teach, or Thatch, aka Blackbeard. A lot of books talk about how the pronunciation for his last name, most say Teach. I'm going to call him Thatch. It works better with me. I think it has a better ring. And I've written it that way into the novel that I'm writing. So here forward, his name is Edward Thatch. So around the Golden Age of piracy, he was on the scene from about 1716 to 1718. And we estimate that he was probably somewhere between 35 and maybe 40 years old at the most. He was born in Bristol, England. That is a common thing that everybody seems to agree upon. But there are some stuff about Edward Thatch that is unknown. It's believed that he was either part of the Royal Navy or he was a privateer at that time. We first come across him on the crew of Benjamin Hornigold's ship in the Caribbean. And he must have risen up the ranks and been an integral member of Hornigold's crew, because he was given a captainship of a sloop during that time, about 1716. The interesting things about Edward Thatch is that, well, one, he was like the personification of a devil of that time. He was such a scary figure, but yet he rarely used violence as recorded within the allegations of him. It's not even known that he ever even killed someone in battle, in hand-to-hand combat, or shooting someone. It's not known. There's no record of that. But of course, his crew and his ship fired cannons, broadsides. They're definitely his crew and the ship itself killed many people, many merchants that they had to come across. But what the figure of Blackbeard the pirate, sent chills and scared people so badly that they usually just gave up. If they saw his ship, if his reputation preceded him, they would give up their possessions, their ship, in exchange of not being killed by this guy and his crew. Um, so the physical attributes of this character are interesting because at that time, the average height was like about 5'5", and he was described as a very tall, broad-shouldered, but spare man. Spare meaning that he was thin. It was like a lot of the movies that we see, especially in the beginning of Hollywood, when they had men playing the part of Blackbeard. They were kind of heavy-set guys, and that was not the case. Blackbeard was probably about 5'10", 5'11" at that time, which would be considered pretty tall. And like I said, broad-shouldered and trim, fit guy. He had a extremely long beard, as it's described, and he would braid it. He would adorn it with black ribbons throughout. His hair was long. Most of the time he was wearing a hat, but an extremely black beard that went all the way up, really close to his eyes, full. He was a hairy guy, right? Yeah, he was a hairy guy. And then when he would be in a situation where he wanted to up that ante, become devil-like and just scare the bejesus out of people that he was trying to board their ship, he would put in wicks and waxed ropes into his beard and into the tops of his hair that would come out of the hat. And he would light these things on fire, and they were just kind of like the way that he did it. They would just smolder and smoke. And so, can you imagine this tall figure of that period, and the smoke just coming all around his face and his head? It would definitely strike fear in anybody that he would come up against. And so that was his persona, that he was this devilish, demon-like person. That, and add to the fact that he would wear colorful coats and jackets to compensate for the darkness of his hair and his beard. He would also have a plethora of weapons on his person, no less than like 3 pistols across his chest, 4 on his belt, around his sides, 2 of the cutlasses, and several knives all over his person, as well as he had a favorite, a 26-inch blunderbuss that he would have, that he would use and fire off in these sieges of merchant ships. Quite a sight, I would imagine. That would be just so amazing if we actually had like firsthand accounts, or obviously photographic evidence of all of this stuff. But what a figure he was. So his history was obviously, I had told you about joining Benjamin Hornigold's ship and being part of the crew. He took charge of a sloop that had 6 guns, and his crew was about 70 men. And that was his first time that he was a captain of a ship that was sieged by Hornigold and his men. And they decided to, they actually had 3 ships in that kind of small armada that Hornigold had. And they sailed up through the mainland of at that time, just the New World, and into the South Carolina, Virginia areas. They would take lots of ships during that year of 1716. It is noted that he was a very intelligent man. He was schooled. He spoke several languages, and he was very military-minded. He was a very it was the type of captain that if you were his enemy, it would be, in a lot of cases, better off for your own health and well-being to surrender your goods and not fight this person, because he was very astute in military tactics. And then during that time of that year of 1716, as Hornigold and the others, as well as him, were sailing along, taking ships, harassing the merchants, and most of it is not it's not gold and silver that they were getting. We have to remember that there are some pirates that we will go into on further episodes that really became super wealthy by taking ships that were from the Spanish, from coming out of Mexico with gold and silver. That wasn't the case. Where they were tackling ships, it was mostly slave ships, and it was commodities that were going back and forth between the New World and other areas. Not so much gold and silver. And that's basically, from what I understand, is mostly just the area of operations that they had. If they had been further into South America, they would have run across those ships that were carrying gold and silver. So they did end up arriving in the New World area, where they met up with Stede Bonnet. Now, Stede Bonnet's an interesting character. I'm not going to go very much into him. He's not really written into my novel, so I'm just going to gloss over him a bit during these episodes. But he was a wealthy landowner and a military officer who turned to piracy just out of the same. He was depressed and he wanted adventure, and he wasn't getting it in his life. So he was a pirate, not by necessity in any way, shape, or form, because he needed money, but just by choice. Well, in that aspect of his life, he turned out to be not a great commander of this ship that he had. And when Hornigold and Blackbeard met up with him, his Stede's command, his crew, was very dissatisfied by him. He had a beautiful ship called Revenge that eventually he gave permission to Thatch to take over that ship and captain it. And it was mostly because there was definitely going to be a mutiny, and Stede was going to probably be killed, or at least deposed from his command. So at that point, Hornigold and Thatch parted ways. Hornigold ended up sailing back towards Nassau in the Caribbean, and Thatch continued to stay around the South Carolina, Virginia area, North Carolina, and use his new ship, the Revenge, to harass and take over other ships to gain their goods. And then by the end of 1716, Thatch and Bonnet had kind of separated, and at the time, the reason of this separation was they had successfully captured this beautiful 2-ton French frigate that was a slave ship. It was a gorgeous ship, and Blackbeard was so excited to take this ship. They had just fired a broadside towards it, and that broadside kind of just killed some of the crew members, not damaging the ship that much. So when they boarded it and took it, he took it for himself. So the ship was called Concord, and it was on its way to the New World from West Africa, full of slaves. Thatch renamed the ship the Queen Anne's Revenge and equipped it with 40 cannons, some that were already on there, and then others that he had taken from Stede Bonnet's ship as well. And then he converted all of the slaves that were there on board to pirates, and he was able to fill the entire crew of this much larger ship with them and some of the crew from the Concord that decided to become pirates as well. And that's the thing, is a lot of the crew members of these ships where the pirates attacked, they would always offer the ability for the crew to join them. And a lot of them did that because no sailors were treated well by the Spanish, the English, the French, the Dutch navies, or even the merchants as well. Like it was not an easy life to be a sailor on these ships. So the pirates always offered equal share of the booty to all of the sailors, and it was like probably the best money that they could get. And probably they got a boat, and so they probably felt that they were going to be treated much better than if they were working for the merchant or the navy. So the Queen Anne Revenge is the name of the ship, or is the name that he had converted from the Concorde. One of the reasons that he chose that name is, well, in Blackbeard's time, the Queen Anne died around 1714, and England was kind of like almost in like a civil war at that point in time. There were the ones who were on board for the successor to Queen Anne to become, that they would be her stepbrother, who was a Catholic, and his name was James, and the other opponent who actually became king was King George the First. Now, a lot of English who had served under Queen Elizabeth, I'm sorry, Queen Anne, they had they'd been endeared to her, and when King George came into power, they did not believe that he should succeed Queen Anne, mainly because he was German-born. He was not from England. He was from a different family that was married in. He was basically a German-born cousin of Queen Anne. And so the naming of the ship, the Queen Anne Revenge, is interesting because we kind of know from that the loyalties of our friend Blackbeard. He was loyal to those supporters of Queen Anne and that particular side of English history. So he decided to stay within that the Carolinas region during the time of about late 1700s, and he as well created a blockade to the port of Charlestown in South Carolina, and so his ships blockaded the port, and then all ships coming to and fro, he just picked them apart. He took their stuff, took their people, and then just kind of sent them on the way. He didn't really keep any of those ships. He just kind of ransacked them, and there was nothing that the city could do. They did not have navies to combat that. Now, what we're not going to talk about is the end of Blackbeard, how he died, and what happened to him afterwards. But at this time that this was going on, King George the First of England offered a royal pardon to all pirates, because at this time the pirates were completely decimating trade from the New World and the Caribbean to the Old World, to Europe and China and everywhere else that had to go through this territory. And if the pirates at that time were to coincide them into their own kind of nation, which was what they were trying to do, a pirate republic had been started. But George decided to issue a pardon that the pirates could keep anything that they had pilgrimed or pilfered during this time, and then they signed the pardon, and they would be free to go on about their life with all of their treasure and booty, and that would be it. Their partying would be done. As long as they didn't continue piracy, they were free to go. And what that effectively did was it really cut the pirate republic in half, because there was some pirates that wanted to continue doing what they were doing, and other ones that were like, well, I've made enough money, or I don't want to take the risk, because the risk was there was a pirate hunter that was going to come after them with a lot of ships and men to combat this. There was going to be basically a push to end what the pirates were doing. Now, several of the pirates took the pardon and then went about, piracy again. And some, in other instances, took the pardon, went on their merry way, and then there was others who took the pardon and became pirate hunters themselves, knowing how they fought, and who all the characters were, right? Well, history shows in this case, what happened to Blackbeard and how he ended up. But in my book, that's not going to come to pass. So I don't want to give it away, and I don't want to talk about the realities of what happened. What I will do is I'll leave you with those notes about our beloved Blackbeard. And I will see you on the next episode. We will talk about another pirate captain and a character in this upcoming book. So thank you for listening, and I hope you subscribe. And I'll be back at this real soon with our next pirate captain. And you have been listening to Pirates of the ... at this point. Can't wait to continue that line of title for you. Thanks so much.